has come early. I mean, it's been 70s and high 60s, which to us here is very warm. So I've been fishing, I've been enjoying that. I hope everyone else has been enjoying the sunshine or whatever weather you've been getting. Hopefully it doesn't get too hot this summer. I know in some places like Phoenix, which I have some family in, it'll get up to like 120 in the summertime, which is unfathomable. So if anyone's from Arizona, let me know what the feeling of walking outside in 120 degree weather feels like. I'm curious to know. But in this video, I just wanted to ramble a little bit about the economy. And a lot of, I don't know if you guys could hear that, there's some kids playing outside, but there's been a lot in the news recently about the economy, you know, with tariffs or inflation or whatever it might be. There's a lot of noise about a recession, and I'll get to that later in this video. But I just want to talk about in general how it has been, you know, at the start of 2020 when things were kind of normal and stable, and really since the Great Recession of 2009. You know, when you look online or you hear in the media, they'll constantly say things that have you thinking that the economy is great, which, you know, by the metrics it is. We've had, you know, GDP growth, low inflation, except for COVID, but, you know, that was kind of a global issue. I don't think you really could have done much about that. And then also the stimmy checks, everyone was getting their stimmy checks, but other than that, the economy has been really solid, it seems like, you know, low unemployment, like I said, GDP growth, and low inflation, you know, and America is the richest country in the world. But when you look at, when you get on the ground level and you see how most citizens are doing day to day, they don't feel that GDP growth, they don't feel that low inflation. Because the ultimate truth in America is that unless you're born into a pretty fortunate situation, you know, or you get lucky, people can make it out of nothing. But it's very, very rare here. And I feel like the elites kind of dangle that over like a carrot on a stick, like, oh, if you work really hard and you grind, you know, you'll get ahead. It's a merit-based system. But the fact is, that's just not really the truth. I mean, cost of living has skyrocketed since, I don't know, for the past years. The cost of attaining a house is unaffordable for almost all Americans, you know. I'm 21. Like I said, I'm in school. I don't know if I said that, but I'm about to graduate. I'm an accounting major. And I'm not even thinking about a house ever in my lifetime at this point. You know, maybe if things turn around, but that's the reality for most Americans. And then on top of insane housing costs, the cost of higher education has skyrocketed. I mean, it used to be back in the 60s and 70s, you know, you used to be able to go to college for a year, take a summer off, work a part-time, maybe a full-time job at Wendy's or stocking shelves, and you would be able to pay off your college tuition for that year, and that would get you through school. And that is in Seattle, it would cost me $40,000 a year, roughly $40,000 a year. And I mean, man, that's just insane. $40,000 a year, maybe if you're going for trying to be a doctor or a lawyer, and so you know you're going to make a bunch of money coming out of college. But I mean, for a lot of people that are, just finance or computer science, they're getting out with ungodly amounts of debt. And the Department of Education has just said that they're going to start collections on defaulted loans. So since COVID, they've been very lenient on student loans. And I guess people have been kind of forgiven since then. And, it's not like people are just not paying their loans because they don't feel like it or they just bought a new car. Most of the time, they do not have the money. So there's 5 million people currently in default with student loans. And I mean, that's not counting the people who are behind on their student loans. That's just the people in default. So they're going to start garnishing wages and collecting that money. And like I said, a lot of people just don't have the money for it. Like I said, with cost of living so high, and you got these student loans, and you got car payments, and you got insurance, and you got your phone bill, etc. You want to save some. They just don't have the money. So that's another aspect of America's. It's extremely difficult to attain higher education unless you're born into a lucky situation, right? Unless you're a part of the lucky sperm club. You are either gonna just have to go straight into the workforce, or you're gonna have to take out a lot in debt, which, depending on the major and depending on your situation, it might not even be worth it. I know for me, so I'm going to the smaller campus of the state school, and just the tuition is, I think it's $4,000 a quarter now. So my total debt when I'm going to be graduating is like going to be around 25 to 30 grand, which isn't a crazy amount. That's like a car. But I also did a dual enrollment program when I was in high school, so I only have to take 2 years of college, right? Because I already got the credits before. But if I was in a situation where I didn't do dual enrollment in high school, and I just had my diploma, and I had to do a full 4 years to get my degree, I don't think I would do it, because I would be $60,000 in debt. And that's not going to a major university. That's not with, room and board. That's going to a commuter school. So, I'm not sure the exact cause of the tuition skyrocketing. I mean, it's got to be just for profit. Sharks in the water, trying to squeeze money out as much as they can. But, I mean, it's a really bad thing because you want to have a population that is educated and that has the opportunities and the ability to gain higher education and learn a skill and improve themselves in the socioeconomic ladder. But the cost of tuition just doesn't allow that at all. So that's just tuition and housing. Let's talk about healthcare. So most Americans get which somewhat works for most people. But I mean, you look at every other developed nation, and I know this talking point comes up a lot, but it's important. You look at every other developed nation, Australia, Canada, Europe, anything you can think of, they have a universal healthcare system where it is funded by tax dollars. And that way you don't have for-profit interests in companies that are operating in this sector. I mean, maybe they do, but it's not for health insurance, right? Because I feel like once you have capitalists take over an industry, they're not gonna do what's best for the consumer, they're gonna do what's best for their bottom line. And so, when you give these insurance companies power and money, the citizens suffer. And a lot of people in the United States, they just don't have the health coverage they need for whatever they may be dealing with. And I think on average about 60,000 Americans die per year because they don't have health coverage or because it would be too expensive. And that's another thing, right? Like, even if you do get, what you need and you're healthy, let's say you have a condition and you get it fixed or you have to have an operation, a lot of people are swimming in medical debt. And with healthcare, it's a little more evil in my opinion because, I mean, what are you gonna do? Let yourself die? I mean, some people do because they don't want their families to have to deal with that kind of debt. But most people will go in debt and they'll get whatever they need done. But then, look now, your life is turned upside down. You have $100,000 in medical debt. And so, I think the biggest thing really in America is there's no social safety net. I mean, it's just rugged individualism. Every man for himself. Dog eat dog. And even then, there's a lot of people that work hard and they try to get ahead. And something happens and they're screwed. I mean, you look at other countries and their citizens, they're way happier than us. Like Europe, if you look at the World Happiness Report, the top 5 is like all European countries. And then I think the United States is at like number 32. And that's because if you don't have money, or if you don't have the ability to advance yourself, right? Like, if you're stuck and if you have to keep up bills for yourselves just to live, you're not going to be able to go to school and get the degree you want or advance, right? You're just going to be stuck. And a lot of people are stuck. And so I think the ultimate cause and the root of all this is lobbying and corporate donations to politicians. Sometime in the 1980s, I'm not exactly sure when or what case it exactly is, but you guys can do the research and look it up. But there was a Supreme Court case that basically said corporations can give money to politicians, to political campaigns, and that's their free speech. Them giving money to political campaigns is free speech. And so ever since then, ever since the 1980s, you've seen politicians become more and more subservient to the corporations, the military-industrial complex, and any other lobbying group. They become way more subservient to them than they are to their own citizens, right? And it was slow moving, and it happened progressively over a span of time. But from the 1980s until now, it's essentially been a rich corporate takeover of the government, in my opinion. Because it's not like this anywhere else in the world. I'm sure there's other places where you can lobby, but Europe doesn't have that. And when you actually look at it, it's essentially legalized bribery. I mean, these companies are giving money to these politicians and saying, hey, I want to be able to pollute this water. Can you pass a law that, loosens the restrictions on dumping waste into this water? And they're like, yeah, I got you. Just give me 50 G's. And then they pass that law. And the citizens suffer. The citizens suffer. The population suffer at the expense of the corporations. And in America we have this grand idea of free markets and competition, rules and everything, but once you get to a point like this, it's not really even a free market anymore. The major corporations, they dominate and they have control over entire industries. There really is no competition anymore in the established industries, right? And it would be one thing if, as these corporations, Apple, Amazon, all these corporations grew and got richer and richer and richer. It would be one thing if that benefit, was somewhat, like they say, trickle-down economics, like that benefit was felt by the people, worker wages increase benefits, maybe unions, stuff like that. But that's not the case. Workers' wages have been stagnant for years. The federal minimum wage is $7 and like 25 cents, which is just, criminal. It's just criminal. And, my opinion is that we need people to work at a Starbucks, right? We need people to be a janitor and clean the floors, like someone needs to be in that role. And I don't think that those people should have to suffer and struggle to get by. They should at least be able to live with dignity, right? Like I said, if you're like a part-time worker or you can't find a job with good benefits and you have some kind of accident, you're screwed. You are screwed. So yeah, you've seen the corporations just take and get richer and richer. The stock market's up like crazy, and I invest in stocks. But at what expense? At the expense of the entire population. No one is happy. Everyone just feels like corporate slaves, essentially. And that's what it feels like. It feels like this country is just a coast-to-coast shopping mall. It's literally just a shopping mall. And on top of that, with all these problems, is embedded in American society is consumerism. I think this has been growing since because like I said, the rich people, this is the best place in the world to live for rich people, but one of the worst for poor people, the worst developed for poor people, I would say. Because we just don't have, a lot of us just don't have a chance. We just don't have a shot. And so it's really kind of depressing that the American dream is dead, you know? And I feel like everyone just is a little bit lifeless in this country. It just feels like there's no soul, there's no community either. That's another big thing, is there's no community in America. There's no real cultural values we share. So we're not really tied together at all. And this is all just how it's been since 2025. And this year it's gotten a whole lot worse. I'm sure you guys have seen the news, tariffs and all that stuff. So, I mean, the tariffs are just idiotic. And I don't know if Trump and my dog was itching himself, but I don't know if Trump and his inner circle is intentionally crashing the economy or if they're actually just that stupid. Tariffs, you know, is essentially just a tax on an import. So a company, if they want to import something from China, they import it, and they have to pay that tariff, which is a tax on the item to import it. And companies are not going to eat that cost. They're not going to eat that tariff, because that would affect their bottom line. What are they going to do? They're going to increase prices. And so the only thing you really had in America before was cheap consumer goods. You know, you could get a cheap bike, or, you know, some good products, some good goodies off Temu or Shein or Amazon. And even that's going away now. And so I don't think it's going to affect food as much. I think we make a lot of food here. But consumer goods are going to skyrocket, which is going to cause massive inflation. It's probably going to cause layoffs. It already has caused layoffs, actually. USPS just announced 20,000 worker layoffs, and a couple other companies have been like closing plants and warehouses and other stuff like that. So it's all the telltale signs, early signs of a recession. And on top of that, the quarter one GDP came out for the US, and we are minus 0.3. So a recession is two quarters in a row of negative GDP growth. So we're in that second quarter right now. So we'll find out in a couple months, in my opinion, that we're in a recession right now as I speak to you. And so inflation's going to go up, prices are going to go up, but companies are going to be laying people off, and wages aren't growing, like I said. So you have a really, really bad situation here in America right now. And on top of all the economic stuff, which, what I think about the tariffs, just the uncertainty of it, and even the tariffs that he still has on. I think Trump still has 10% tariffs on most countries, and then like some insane amount with China, which if you go above a certain percentage of tariff, it doesn't even make a difference, because they're just not going to trade it. They're just not going to import it because the cost is just way too high. So trade is essentially like shut down between the US and China. He has all the reciprocal tariffs on other countries for no reason. inflation is going to skyrocket. Because we can't just print money like we did before. That's the perk of being the world reserve currency. You can print money and have relatively low inflation because it's trusted, it's reliable, but people aren't trusting the dollar like they used to. And so you have all of this happening. At the same time, there's a lot of geopolitical conflicts and tensions going on right now. You know, the world's hot. The world is a very hot place right now. And it's only heating up. So, yeah, man, in my opinion, I think we need to be a social democracy and have healthcare and have near free tuition, you know, and have safety social nets. I reject this idea, this notion that you have to inherently be of value and be a producer to society just to live. I don't think that's true, you know. And again, I don't think people should just be lazy, sit on their ass and live off welfare all day. But it shouldn't be the case where if you get in an accident, you're screwed and you're in medical debt for life. You know, we have veterans going homeless. We have hit the highest amount of homeless people in this country, which is a sign of the systemic issue. And like I said before, I think it really all comes down to the corporations being able to buy politicians, right? If we had politicians in there that weren't bought by these corporations, they would have to be reliable on us. They'd be dependent on us to get elected. So they would fight for the people, but that's just not what you see. And then on top of that, another thing I want to add in before I go, and then I'm gonna hop off the mic here, but another thing is wealth inequality is insane. And you know, you always hear that wealth inequality, but it is seriously insane, because I remember in like 2018, 2019 maybe, when I was first kind of getting into investing. I was probably it was like 5 years ago. I remember looking on the Forbes billionaire list, the richest people in the world, just for fun, you know, just to check it out. And the number one was, at the time, it was, I think, Jeff Bezos at like 130. You had Bill Gates at like 100, Warren Buffett at like 90, and then everyone below that had like 70, 60, 50. I want you to go check out the Forbes Billionaire 100 list right now, the real-time list, and see what it's at now. There's like 15, 20 people with over 100 billion. So you see, the billionaires are just getting richer and richer and accumulating more wealth and power. And, you know, for Jeff Bezos, what's the difference between 109 billion and 230 billion? Right? Nothing for him. But they're hoarding so much wealth and stashing it away from society. And those people are just kind of left to pick up the scraps. So, yeah, that was my video talking about the economy. I was just kind of rambling off the top of my head. I'm thinking of doing a series. I'm thinking of doing a ASMR newscast. So I would, every Friday, or I would pick a day, but I would probably do it weekly. I would do a little 30-45 minute video going through news and stuff, you know, political news, pop culture, you know, memes, what's popular, you know, sports if it's a big story, but anything in the news. So I think that would be a kind of good idea. So that might be my next video, but I'm not sure yet. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you in the next one.